bankrupting the city. The 3 executives in UBS over their municipal bond division have just gone to jail. Bank of America's executives have been indicted for their municipal bonds, but it doesn't stop them. They're continuing to do it. We want to say that's our fight. We don't owe the banks a dime. They owe us billions for what they've done. They owe us reparations for what they've done. They should be funding a jobs program to put our youth to work. And we have to take the offensive against them. Let me just say, if we take a view of the struggle that broadens it, this is not a Detroit issue. This is a national and international phenomenon. Cities across the country whose populations are predominantly people of color who are targeted with subprime loans find themselves in the same economic situation as Detroit. Philadelphia, which just reported, has a $200 million deficit for its schools and has those $200 million in debt service to the banks. The same things in Chicago, it's everywhere. And it's going on in Greece. It's going on in Spain. This ain't a Detroit issue. It's a war by the bankers against the workers all over the country. We need to fight back. I want to end by saying we have issued a call for an international people's assembly against the banks and against austerity to take place in Detroit on October 5th, on the 5th anniversary of the bank bailout. We're going to be inviting people from all over the country to come to the solidarity of Detroit. Because right now, we are the epicenter of the struggle against the banks. And if they succeed in their nefarious plans against Detroit, it'll spread all over the country. Let's build this assembly. Let's build this movement. Let's fight the system. Let's fight the banks. Then cancel the debts of the banks. They owe us.
Awesome. Now, when we take the test later on, we're going to make sure you got the names of the banks that you need to be pulling your money out of. Hopefully nobody has any money in Bank of America or UBS. Credit union is where we need to be. Okay, John Philo's going to be up next. Sugar Lawson, serving the community in a big way. John.
I want to go to the
You can do it, John!
Accomplished the match with this. I agree with 100%. I guess I'm going to take it down to that. It's just my style, and unfortunately, for better or worse. I agree entirely with everything you speak. This is not, we've been put into this false, silly, moronic narrative that this is about corruption and incompetence and all over. There's not a single fool out there, even the people saying, who don't know that that's a lie. That's a bald-faced lie. They know it, but they're counting on people to be passive. They're counting on people to sit back and accept, it's your nightly news. Shut off your brain, go to sleep, pretend you're informed at some level. We have to realize there's allies everywhere. We won that petition vote with northern Michigan voters and urban voters. These are people in both places that have been kicked around plenty. And they have an intuitive understanding of when they're being jobbed. And they knew it. They knew it. It wasn't a media campaign that convinced them of it. It wasn't the money for them. It was people talking to people and getting over the differences that the media tries to throw between us every time we wake up in the morning. I'm going to tell you what I do. I look at it as there's tools everywhere. I'm a lawyer. I use the law. I use the courts. It's one tool. It's not better, it's not worse than anything else. It's one tool. The pulpit is another tool. The media is another tool. Community organizing is another tool. They're all valuable. And there's every single person in this room and your friends work and live in realms where they have tools available to try and change this. Our institutions have utterly failed us. You know, I mean, we have to accept that. And we're not going to be saved by any institution. There's individuals within institutions that can work. There's some great, you know, Reverend Ross, Reverend Bill Wiley-Kellerman, and others, and I'm sure there's others in this room who are doing great work. But religion is an institution. The churches I go, they're not talking about.
No, they're not.
And that's why these people stop going. Our unions, who I'm all for, have failed us.
That's right.
Institutions. The media, there's, you know, great media people in this room. But the media has collapsed.
That's right. No doubt.
Our educational institutions, particularly our universities, as public spokespersons, talking about what's right, what's true, they're absent. They're absent without relief. We have to change this from below, and that's what I think we're all trying to do, and that's what I try to do with the law. There's probably only about 20 attorneys working on emergency manager, and none of them come from an office with more than 2 or 3 attorneys. Your legal institutions are gone, and this stupid nonsense you hear about getting more attorneys to do pro bono work, that's to get a large firm that ripped you off last week to give somebody a couple hours of time to help you with something that doesn't threaten their system at all. There is no question that the emergency manager law is about race. We can dance around it, you know, in the white world, we all like to talk polite and, you know, not say this in these institutions. You know, nobody wants to admit they're bad. Nobody. And they should. Yep. The challenge for us is to force the bigots to expose themselves. Is to force it on them. Is to say, this is racist. Lila was saying, I think it's 7 towns with emergency managers, all predominant. The only one that isn't is Allen Park, and they have a real unusual, well, they have a real different situation that I'm not going to go into. You can, you know, ask them for it, and also the reason they closed. But that's out of 11 out of 12 predominantly black communities who were rated in the worst, you know, the most financial trouble, got an emergency manager or a consent judgment. Of something like 15 white communities that had those scores or worse, none of them got it. Not one. Not one. That's where the schools. That's stark. That's grotesque. That's something someone has to answer for. That's what we're trying to change. We look at this lawsuit as an opportunity to force the court to say either that's wrong or we're so damn hypocritical that we're going to say it's okay. And I think the majority of people north in the urban areas would like to know that. If they're going to say, with a stamp of government, that that's good, that's the way it should be, then let's have a vote on that in the next elections of whether that's right or not. Because I think all these things are hidden from the average person. They're forced not to confront. They're made, structures of society are such that they don't have to confront. There's no question this is about the banks. Every fool in this country knows that the municipalities are funded by property taxes, income taxes, and revenue sharing from the state. The state balanced its budget by cutting revenue sharing to municipalities. The banks absolutely pillaged these communities for the past 20 years, and it all came to hit the wall in 2008. And the income taxes, particularly for Detroit, you're running about 35 to 50% unemployment.
That's right.
It is no surprise to anybody that the revenues are not there. And to try and blame these communities for the problems is freaking criminal. And that's what's going on. I think the goal of our lawsuit, it's tough because we have to translate it into legal language. What the lawsuit is about is to force the court to recognize that if there's going to be a government, federal, state, local, if there is going to be one, and a government is somebody who passes laws. Laws are just rules backed up by force of the state, backed up by the police, right? If there is going to be that government, it has got to be a government that is elected and representative of the people. Otherwise, it's illegitimate and needs to go. I think there are some of you wondering what's going on with these lawsuits, and particularly our lawsuit, so I'll get that. I'll tell you that. The bankruptcy court has put a stay over cases where the governor and the treasurer are involved. Now, I swear a lot. I'm trying not to. Every bankruptcy in this country, the debtor, the city of Detroit, and its property, get this stay. And you can go and try and lift that stay. The bankruptcy court has given it to the governor and Snyder.
What?
Snyder and Dillon.
And Dylan,
Yeah, thank you. They are not the debtor. They got no property. And they never going after. What the heck is that about?
Right.
Well, that's about protecting banks. And it's protecting the rate of this city's assets and transferring wealth from the poorest to the wealthiest. And protecting it. Right now, we're fighting that through the court system. Lawsuits are brought for different reasons. One, you try to win. You think you can win. Two, they're political. Okay? You're trying to make a statement. I do view our lawsuit as a combination of both. I think we can win, and we will win. The challenge for us, and why it's not so real, is when we'll win. Will it be too late to matter?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. With respect to, we're going to have a question and answer, and I'm happy to answer in that session, or you can talk to Diane about that. But what you can do is, one, file the damn objections. They're allowing you to file objections. This isn't going to change it, but they need to hear from people and know that there's problems out there. A 30-day period to file objections is about the shortest that I'm aware of ever in a municipal bankruptcy. And this is the largest municipal bankruptcy ever. Yeah. 30 days. Stockton, California got about 9 months. I mean, why is this city getting treated so differently? Go to the hearings, organize around them. I agree, protests got to be 100 people. But, target those, organize the court hearings, make your presence known in every way possible. I'll wrap it up there. And that answers the question next. Thank you all.
Two-thirds vote.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a 2/3 vote for us to even have a deal to be legal, and it's being said that that vote was never given for him to exist.
Well, two things on the 2/3 vote for, my understanding is that one was the immediate effect issue, which the Sixth Circuit just said the basic Michigan legislature is basically operating outside the law, and it's immediate effect laws. But that was on public act 4. Okay. The 2/3 vote with respect to whether you can pass what's called the local law, that's just in certain municipalities, that is wrapped into, we're trying to stay in federal court for reasons that other people know, we're well aware of with respect to our state courts. If we get into a state law issue in the federal court, there's a chance to kick it over to the state court. We don't want that to happen. We got a good federal judge. We want to keep it there. So that's why it isn't raised right now, but there's some things that we're planning that to get that directly before the court at some point. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Diane Bukowski with voiceofdetroit.net. You can go on that newspaper online at voiceofdetroit.net and read hundreds of articles about the banks and which ones to boycott. Number one, because it's all on there, especially for moratorium now. Now I wanted to ask a question regarding the latest article we put up is because we found out on August 7th that the state did file to stay the lawsuits against Public Act 436. All of them, both of them. I'm not sure, there may be a third one. And I wanted to ask Attorney Philo, I have already talked with one of the attorneys, there's an article up on my website about that, but if he could expatiate more on what they plan to do on that. Basically, they're dead in the water right now until some action is taken. And I don't want the people to get false hope.
With respect to that stay, the one that's extended to Governor Administrator, it's clear that the bankruptcy court was only considering 3 pension cases that were in Lansing. But the governor and the attorney general have asserted that stay now in every case, every conceivable case, and that includes us. What we're doing is going before the judge in our case to say, clearly this shouldn't apply to us for a number of reasons. If that fails, then we have 2 other backup steps that we're going to do immediately after that. That I don't want to. If there's any representatives of the government here, you can identify yourself.
This question was also to John Philo, attorney. I want to file an objection on Monday. Do I need an attorney to do that?
No, and my opinion is on people, the worst that's going to happen is they're going to dismiss your objection.
Okay.
And so,
all right.
Make them process them all. They got to read them, they got to look at them,
Okay. So, and you can file as many objections as you see appropriate? I have 2 in mind.
You can put them all in the same one.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. And I'm hoping you can give me some kind of quick judgment on this. The emergency manager is about to pull all the meters of the public lighting department out of every customer they have, over 100 customers, and put DTE meters in, effectively killing the public lighting department forever. And unfortunately, even perhaps in this room, there's some people who think, well, the public lighting department's been a problem for years. I don't have street lights, and all that sort of thing. All this is designed to turn this asset over completely to DTE, which will then charge its own rates. And in the same time, we have in the Michigan Constitution and in the emergency manager law a clear prohibition against emergency managers or anyone else transferring this asset. So is this something that the court would actually give consideration to, in your opinion, given that it's a Michigan Constitution and a federal court?
I think they should give it consideration. The challenge for all of us has been there are literally 15 actions of the emergency managers in these 7. One thing for us, it's not just Detroit, it's Benton Harbor, it's Flint, it's Pontiac, are doing every single day that should be challenged in court. And that any fair court, honest court, would have a real tough time upholding. But resources and capacity to challenge each of these is not come up. It's not there. So, at least from my own firm's perspective, is working with a coalition to get rid of the whole emergency manager law. That's the goal for us. But these should be challenged. I think it is highly questionable. I think it's freaking criminal. But there's a lack of resources, and in an ideal world, we would be flooding the courts with these lawsuits.
My question is regarding the pensions from the retirees of the city of Detroit and those potential people who would be retiring. What about that pension money? Can they actually come in and take pension money?
Well, we can all speak to that. I mean, that's a question, a big question. And the Michigan Constitution provides for specific protection against pensions. And my own view is that one of the basics for this whole action is to set a precedent for the other 24 states that also protect pensions. That's one of the big issues that's going to be discussed in the as part of the eligibility. Whether the filing, I mean, the state court judge ruled that the bankruptcy filing was illegal because it was in violation of the Michigan Constitution. Michigan state law determines the authority of the so-called city. In this case, it's a joke because the city is the emergency manager to be in bankruptcy. It determines the authority. So one of the big issues in the eligibility question is going to be just that. And it has not been decided as of now. So that's going to be a big question. But I will say this, at the same time, this judge is hell-bent at ramming through this process. In the first hearing, he set up a retirees committee, which I thought was a complete violation. I intervened in a bankruptcy case. I don't do bankruptcy. But I knew enough to show that it was illegal, and yet he did it anyway. So the main thing I would suggest, I know associated with moratorium now, we have Stop Theft of Our Pensions Committee. We're starting to demonstrate, get involved. What's going to determine this for the pensioners, if we sit back and leave it up to Rhodes, let me tell you, he's going to go very far. But mobilize. There are thousands of 21,000 pensioners. It's a base to fight this from. And pensioners need to get active and not sit back and rely on their associations and their boards and all the lawyers. Do it yourself. Sign up at our table. We have a Stop Theft of Pensions Committee that we've already set up that's had several demonstrations, and that's what I think is going to be critical. I just want to make one brief point on the earlier point, that Russ's point. In bankruptcy, there's no authority for selling off assets. It's constitutionally prohibited. And the Emergency Manager Act also does not provide for selling off assets. So I think that's a great objection to make, and it should be made. And it shows that he's going outside the authority of not just state law, but federal law in threatening to sell off of assets. Well, no question. But whether he has I totally agree with that. But whether he has the authority to file the bankruptcy on that is the question.
Well,
I agree.
Deborah Ma'at Moore. This question is for the Sugar Loss Center. My understanding is when we filed an objection